Today I'm going to talk about what makes Star Trek so fantastic and how I became a fan. This is nothing new. People have been talking about this since the show debuted in 1966, but that's one of the great things about Star Trek, its longevity, and that every fan has a unique story. For those that don't know me, my name is Eric Wilfred Watson. I'm the author of the thriller novels Judas Kissed and Becoming Quincy. Both are available on Amazon.com. My science fiction epic Death Siren will be released later this year, 2024.
Shall we begin?
Growing up, I was aware of Star Trek, but I wouldn't have called myself a Trekkie. I grew up knowing of the show, but I wasn't really a fan. I knew of the movies, and I remember seeing the 1970s show when I was a kid, and I saw an episode or two of the original series, but it didn't really stick with me. I saw the movies Star Trek 4 and 5 when I was a kid before I saw Star Trek 2, so the death of Spock confused me. I didn't dislike Star Trek, but I didn't really pay any attention to it. That all changed when I was a sophomore or junior in high school, sometime in the mid-1990s, when Star Trek The Next Generation had already finished its 7-year run without me ever having watched a single episode. If I remember correctly, a casual acquaintance of mine was a big Star Trek fan. This person accidentally left behind 4 VHS tapes of random Star Trek The Next Generation episodes at another friend's house. Somehow I ended up with them. For those of you born after the VCR era, VCRs could record TV shows onto tapes at different speeds. The slower the VCR recorded onto the cassette, the more content would fit on the tape, but the quality suffered. Those 4 left behind VHS tapes each contained 6 random episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation recorded at the slowest, crappiest speed from television reruns. This was before Netflix was even mailing out DVDs, let alone streaming content. Then I got sick. I wasn't on my deathbed, but I felt pretty lousy. Back then, without streaming services, I was at the mercy of whatever the networks and cable channels put on the air. During the weekday, it was mostly talk shows and soap operas that I had zero interest in. I had already watched all of my other VHS tapes 1,000 times, so hoping to pass the time while I recuperated, without anything else to watch, I popped in one of those Star Trek tapes and watched all 6 episodes in a row. When it was over, I put in the next cassette and did the same thing again. That was about 12 hours of television, complete with recorded commercial breaks, only broken up by trips to the bathroom and eating what little food I could keep down. I was binge-watching before there was a word for binge-watching. Still not feeling well the next day, I did the same thing with the other 2 tapes, 12 more episodes. That was 24 back-to-back Star Trek The Next Generation episodes, a show I only knew of in passing to that point. To my total and complete astonishment, I was hooked. I was sad that I didn't have any more episodes left to watch, so I rewatched all 4 of those tapes over the next few days before giving the cassettes back to their original owner. Over the next several years, I accumulated a whole library of Star Trek media. I rediscovered the original series, watched the movies, and got into Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Then I started reading every Star Trek novel I could get my hands on. A love for all things Star Trek morphed into a passion for classic science fiction literature like Isaac Asimov, Robert A. Heinlein, Philip K. Dick, and others. I rediscovered Star Wars, then found Stargate, Battlestar Galactica, Babylon 5, and anything else that involved spaceships shooting at other spaceships. My love for science fiction evolved into a love of fantasy fiction. I started reading Terry Brooks, Terry Goodkind, Brandon Sanderson, Robin Hobb, R.A. Salvatore, and others. Today, I read all kinds of books and watch all types of movies and television shows of almost every genre. This Sound and Fury YouTube channel was born because my friend Hugh Frank and I talk about this stuff, and we started recording the conversations we would be having even if the cameras weren't there. Lately, I've been reading mostly crime thrillers. The point is that I love almost anything with a good story, and Hugh Frank and I talk about that quite a bit on this channel, but I'll have a permanent soft spot for science fiction, especially if it has the word Trek in its name. Well, what is it about Star Trek that I like so much? For one thing, I appreciate the scope of it all. As I record this, there have been about 8 live-action television series, not counting the short treks, 3 animated series, a soon-to-be-released streaming movie, a Starfleet Academy live-action series is in the works. There have been 13 theatrical movies thus far, and countless more novels and comic books and video games. That's a gigantic playground for a fan like me to lose myself in. When I got into Star Trek, there was really nothing else like that out there. Star Wars and Marvel live-action content are catching up, but Star Trek was the original, massive, multi-format fictional universe. I appreciate Star Trek because it has the freedom to tell almost any kind of story. There have been slapstick comedy episodes, horror episodes, action shows, romantic comedy shows, westerns, murder mysteries, courtroom dramas, political thrillers, etc. The framework of this fictional universe allows writers to imagine just about anything. How fun is that? Star Trek presents an optimistic future. Now, this is something that's been talked about a lot, but it's true. We'd all love to live in a world without racism or social problems, and Star Trek gives us a glimpse of what that might actually look like. It feels good to see things as they should be, not necessarily as they are. The show gets too political for my tastes sometimes, but unlike dramas set in the present, the science fiction setting allows us to see issues from another, often enlightening and allegorical perspective. Some people can't get over how dated the show looks, and that's fair. It's hard to look at the original Star Trek from the 1960s and think of that as our future now. The shows from the 1990s are starting to show their age as well. The space pajama uniforms can be off-putting to a non-science fiction fan, but that only endears it to me all the more. If you don't like Star Trek, hey, I get it. It's about the nerdiest thing a person can enjoy, but if you get it, you get it. Lastly, Star Trek fans are the best group of people out there. It's a great fandom to be a part of. It's like one big nerdy family. And that's awesome. Thank you very much for watching.
Hello, computer.